I'm not a developer, but I'm developing software. So does that make me a software developer? I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and debate, whether or not, I'm this person. I'm Chris Pirillo, and I'm finding that these tools do what I need them to do, and I'm able to make them do the things that I want them to do.
What is this vibe coding thing anyway? And does it have legs? We're going to be talking all about that this week on the GeekWire podcast. Joining me on this episode is Chris Pirillo. He's a tech storyteller and entrepreneur and a community builder. He's been a guide to the world of technology for everyday users since the early days of the web. And man, he has gone deep on the vibe coding thing. He is launching a new free event series in Seattle called Control Alt Create Live. And we're going to talk about that coming up. But it's for folks who want to know more. It's Thursday, October 16th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Is that right, Chris?
That is correct.
Chris, it's great to have you back on the show.
I know. Long time.
It hasn't been that long this time. Before it was 10 years in between. Now it's been about a year and a half. But I got to say, just thinking about your career and your life as a creator, when you think about vibe coding, it's almost like this is the pinnacle. This is like where you were headed all along.
Yeah.
Because you can sit down, you and everybody else, and describe in plain language the thing you want to create and figure it out from there with the help of AI. Give me a sense for what you've been doing in the realm of vibe coding and sort of how you've been able to sort of self-actualize your inner geek through this process.
I think you framed it very well. It's an accessible way of having your ideas brought to life and not having to go through an intermediary like an engineer, someone who understands software, your web guy, as we used to call him. You could just prompt your way to a solution. And I think most people will be using this, whether they realize they're going to be using it or not, because I've already seen, for example, Nothing. That's the name of the company. They got the phone with their Nothing OS. They've got now in their, I think it's a beta, on the phone, you could vibe code your own widgets for the home screen. And I'm like, okay. And then there's another entity, and the name escapes me. It's not really on my radar because it's an iPhone thing. And don't get me started on Apple and what they've done. Look at what they've massacred my boy. It's with both macOS Tahoe, which might as well be renamed macOS Vista. Wow.
Okay, vibe coding. I'm getting you back on track.
So Apple vibe coded macOS Tahoe. I'm confident. Vibe coding. Oh, you knew this. You knew I was going to go there
without prompting. Yeah. So keep going.
Yeah. So what's exciting is that you speak to it, and you think more like a product manager or a user and less like an engineer. And this, I think, is the paradigm that most people who are cautious about this don't fully grasp it. They think, oh, it's technology, it's code. I can't do that. So they've already shut themselves down. Even if they are creative, even if they have the ability to communicate, great. If you can communicate your idea intelligibly and help guide that process along, you can create something. And the complexity, I'm not even going to say is limited by your imagination. At this point, platforms, and even over the past 6 to 7 months, those advances have been palpable at every iteration. I'd heard about it, but I thought, I don't know, these tools are so difficult. And then Google released Gemini Pro 2.5 preview. And I was doing a live stream and I was testing different tools. Oh, we're going to do this webpage and that webpage. And they were all okay. And then I tried Gemini. So I tried Gemini. I'm like, oh my God, this is usable. Like, this is not just a toy. This is very usable. And I don't know app development. And honestly, you don't need to know, because that's kind of what these platforms are good for, whether we're talking these native platforms on phones or apps that you can download to your phone or desktop through vibe code apps for your phone or desktop. I'm staying squarely within the realm of web development because it's easy, it's accessible, it's manageable. And, within, that time since March, I've done like 100 different apps and games that are usable and playable. It's fun to do. And I honestly, I look at some of them going, how the hell did I do that? And
what's your favorite so far?
I did a a tenorion emulator.
What is that? I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, it's a musical instrument, like I don't know, is it like a MIDI
Yeah.
synthesizer? And it was Yamaha made it years ago, and it's like an $800 gadget. But I built basically a tenorion as a web page that you can play, and it works. Like, it's functional.
Oh my God.
That was fun. I did a touch grass simulator that beats every touch grass simulator I've seen. They all suck.
What's a touch grass simulator? I don't know what that is either.
Well, I got tired of people telling me to touch grass, so I just like, okay, fine, I'll touch grass. So here, I open up the app, in the touch grass, there, I'm done. And so, yeah, so the blades of grass blow individually. You can change the height and the width. You can pan around. Just trust me. It's great. But yeah, just I think what is exciting is not having to rely on a system to be able to bring an idea to fruition. And I've long said there's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur. This enables a new class of entrepreneurialism. And really, for years, people have been stuck with that. I got an idea. There needs to be a website that does X, Y, and Z. I'm like, okay, great, do it. And you could use this platform, that platform, the other platform, be supported by an array of tools, but you could do it. If you have the ability to communicate and to, work through that process, you can vibe code. That's what vibe coding is. And for anybody who says it's a flash in the pan, they're wrong. I mean, like, the genie's out of the bottle. Like, Pandora's out of the box. Like, you think that I can create an app, something simple, a simple tool that I know I can use and what I need. How are we going to go back to, no, you can't use it because it's just a pad? No.
I remember back in the early days of GeekWire, we met with a web developer and I said, hey, can you do this and this and this? And he said to me, yeah, it's just pixels on a page. And I remember thinking at the time, like, oh my God, this guy's a freaking wizard, and then he never returned my calls again. And yeah. So to the extent that you can use this stuff, to your point, to like bring to life the stuff that's in your head, it's incredible. And you're talking a lot about personal projects, personal passions, games, synthesizers, touching grass. Is there business opportunity here?
Absolutely. I think that's, it all begins, and you don't know where inspiration is going to strike, but when it strikes, you just go with it. And that's, again, a part of being an entrepreneur. And I think there are more entrepreneurs out there that don't realize they're entrepreneurs. They just haven't figured out that the tools that are there are at their disposal and ready to be used. I mean, I've had people ask, I'm like, well, I just don't know how to get started. What do you mean you don't know how to get started? You've heard of Google, yeah? Okay. Have you used Google Gemini? Yeah, they may have done a search. Well, they've got a tool where you go into the tool and you say, hey, build a web page that does X. Hey, build a this that does that. And then that's it. That's it. It's really not that complex. It isn't. I think people are stuck on the idea that it's technology as this thing to be feared, and or it's in the realm of somebody who's far geekier than they are. And I think this is what's turning the concept of technology on its ear. Technology has long been an enabler, and this is just putting a finer point on it being an enabler. And so, yeah, I can understand why some people would say, oh, AI is just a fad. Maybe aspects of it might be, and maybe some of these, companies maybe shouldn't be companies. I don't know. I'm not going to cast aspersions and think all ideas are worth it, right? But not trying is the worst thing you could do. The barrier to entry is nothing or next to nothing. And there are platforms that are more complex. You want to build on a full-on SaaS, and you want to do this, that, and the other thing and take payments. Sure, you can do that. Or you can start small, test something, build a prototype, right? That's not going to cost you much. A prototype that you can then take to a true engineer, a true coder, a true developer, or work with someone to build that or bake that into, some kind of model. But the thing is, stopping yourself from doing something is the worst thing that you could do. And then we become our own enemies, like our own worst enemies. This is not the game as it was 5 years ago. Hell, not even 2 years ago. And I'll say this, as much as I do understand technology to a certain degree, I'm not, I know generally what I'm doing. But if I can do it, anybody can, because I see myself as more of the person who sees tools and figures out how to use them. And I think we all function that way. And if we didn't, we wouldn't be using smartphones. Smartphones are tools. again, nothing OS has got it baked in, but Roark, I think RORK builds cross-platform apps that'll run native on iOS and Android, or there was a team that built Swift UI and now have an iOS app that will let you use Swift on iOS to build iOS apps. So this is my belief, whether you call me crazy or not. I believe this stuff's going to be baked into every platform natively, if it isn't already going to be. And I have no inside track into any platform. But to me, when I saw Nothing OS allowing you to bake and this is just the other day, just this week, that you could build your own widgets, I'm like, dude, Google, is going to integrate it on their desktop that they're now going to be working on. They're going to bake it into Chrome. They're going to bake it into Android, and like natively. And Apple's going to do the same thing. So there are opportunities. They're just different kinds of opportunities, and part of that is going to be building platforms to help people, achieve the things they want to achieve. Education, for example. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities there. Technology is not going to stop. It's just how we see it and how we use it and how we frame it. We're no longer these peasants, at the bottom of this ziggurat, looking up to the high priest going, how do you do that? How do you make the clouds go away? This is incredible. Like, no, we have that power in our hands. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. No, I do know exactly what you're saying. In fact, I want to show you something that I vibe coded. So let's do that when we come back. You're listening to GeekWire, and we will be right back. Welcome back. It's Todd Bishop. I'm speaking this week with Chris Pirillo. We're talking about vibe coding. And if you want to check out his next event, it is coming up. It's called Control-Alt-Create Live. It is a 2-hour in-person creative jam where anybody from beginners to senior devs can build something real using AI and no-code tools. Of course, this is vibe coding, and the first event is happening, as we said, at the Amazon AWS Skills Center on Thursday, October 16th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Is it 2 hours or 3 hours? Am I getting that wrong?
Yeah, I think 3 hours with the networking, but like 4 to 7 is our time.
Okay, and I will have a link in the show notes directly to that. You can also search for Control-Alt-Create Live, find Chris on LinkedIn or wherever he is. Where else are you? Twitch?
Everywhere. Yeah, you can't not find me. Like, you have to really try hard. Chris@Pirillo.com. Like, if you know how to spell my name, and if you don't, go to Google.
Okay, so I assume you're sitting in front of a computer.
Am I not? Yes.
Go to GeekWire and then geekwire.com and then /geekwire-200.
Nice.
This was vibe coded. Did I make this or did Claude make this? I don't know, but I told Claude what to do.
Yeah.
This is a reinvention of our GeekWire 200 startup index. I made our third-party devs very nervous when I told them what I was doing. However, I had them sign off on it. We had some people who were in our ecosystem who were a little bit concerned security-wise. Wait, you're going to production with something that you did. So I want to be very clear. I created it through Claude. And I will tell you just a little bit of the nitty-gritty, Chris, and you may relate to this. Claude was very good at the UI, just like its ability to create something that looks, that's one of the nicest features we've had on the site. And it's a low bar, I will give you that. But in terms of the appearance, that's one of the nicest. So, but when it came to the data, it had such a hard time with 200 fields with different pieces of data inside. And I ended up taking the HTML, giving the HTML file to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT was far better at injecting the data into that wrapper, as it were. Has that been your experience as well?
So, I'm in the realm of not doing anything terribly complex. I used Lovable for their free 48-hour weekend and had a similar problem. Like I said, yeah, I did that. And then it didn't do it. Like, it looked great, but it didn't work. Well, that was, a few months ago. Fast forward to today, and those platforms, whether we're talking Lindy, Lovable, Bolt, et cetera, have done a better job at, and I know you're talking Claude, which is a completely different level.
Oh, no, it's good though.
There's services for people that don't want to mess with something, on the desktop, like with Cursor or Claude, or, well, I guess Claude, you could use Claude AI on the web, ChatGPT to a large degree with Codex. I've played with a lot of them. And I've never had a need for something terribly complex. Were I to do something that needed, a high level of complexity, then I would, again, do kind of a research on what's going to be best in class for what it is that I need. And it changes every month. They constantly jockey for position.
I will say, though, one thing I've learned on the back end, just even doing this for a pseudo business purpose or something where you're going to be, working in collaboration with other people, it has taken a level of rigor in terms of my file structure, my file naming, my ability to collaborate has really fallen short when I've just kind of been, oh, this is the CSV for, this day, and I switched it to the, it's just, you've got to really be careful to document and somehow make clear the structure of what you're doing on the back end here, as easy as it is on the front end.
Yeah, but at the same time, as these tools progress, develop, mature, a lot of that cognitive load will get lifted. And today, this is as someone said this to me recently, like, this is the worst it'll ever be. So like a year from now, like, you're gonna be like, how did I do this? How did I use that? Like, now it's this, and this, and that's what's happening so fast, so fast. So, there's still, for the heavier things, there's a little more hand holding, but where there's a will, there's a way. For the lighter things, which is where I think most people are going to be, just thrilled witless. It's not as heavy. It's not as scary. It's not as complex. Because it just depends again on what it is that you might need. Now, you as a business owner, I think are an example for other would-be business owners, if not existing business owners. And I don't mean people who are in the startup space and have engineers. I mean people who are like, they're trying to figure out how to run their business and they don't have the tool and they can't figure out how to work because it's so complex. They just need it to do this. Now there are opportunities to at least have something more than you had before, whether again it was a prototype to be able to pass along or something that is more functional. And maybe it's not something that you roll out to production because again, you've got to be mindful, especially when you're talking about data, about security. When you roll it on a public facing site. This is one of the reasons why I'm sticking basically very lightweight HTML apps. Which have you seen them? You haven't even seen. Have you?
Let's look. Where should people go?
Yeah, arcade.pirillo.com. We'll redirect you there to the arcade, and it's PIRILLO.com. If you misspell it, Google will slap you, or you'll figure out because it's a site that doesn't exist. But there's where everything is very visual, but it's just basic. But then from there, I thought, now that I'm doing this event, which again I do hope is going to be an event series, and it does I think have legs. We've got a number of sponsors on board, even for the first one, which is fantastic. And I don't think that's even on faith. I think it's on the understanding of the event that I'll be producing.
But before you go on, before you go on to the next thing, like you've got slime ball, 8-bit battle tanks. Is that what that is?
Yeah, and they all work.
Apple Glow, a mesmerizing interactive WebGL shader, manipulate vibrant glowing patterns. Oh yeah. Man, you're having fun. How do you find the time for this? Jeez.
I set aside time every week. I'm like, okay, I'm going to vibe code. Or necessity being the mother of invention. Part of the Control Alt Create Live is you bring your laptop, and I don't just say, okay, vibe code, whatever. We're going to have a word, a certain word that everyone has to vibe code around. So I thought, well, I could give everybody a word. Then I thought, wait a minute. Well, I can do a dial, a spinner. Like we can take, potential words from the audience. I'm like, well, is there? And I came close. I was like, oh, I bet you there's a spinner out there. I'm like, no. I'm going to build my own. So I built my own spinner, and we'll take the words in, we'll spin the wheel, and then whatever word it lands on, you just have to create, let's say the word is dog. Well, then you have to create something that involves dog, whether it's a site for dogs, whether it's an app, a game, a task manager, whatever. You just use your imagination, just using that keyword. And then at the end of the night, we'll have however many people developing things, a list of things at the end of the night of like all this different platforms, different, inspiration, different decisions, and just, again, building upon each other, building up, experience, connections, and really putting that creative power where it always was, in our hands, but showing just how simple it is or how it can be. You can make this complex. or you can make it simple. That choice is yours. I err to the side of, well, I'm going to try to make it simple. I'm going to look for a platform that's going to suit the needs that I might have, including potentially vibe coding something that will better manage the experience I want to create around these events.
Another one, droid repair. You made this for your daughter. You mastered fourth grade math skills and repaired droids in this engaging game. Very cool. So, I mean, like it seems like any challenge that you see out there, you're thinking of it through the lens of AI, and then you're applying to those challenges this notion that you can basically build whatever the heck you want now.
Yeah. I mean, they're all open sourced. I had a GitHub account, and I'm like, I need an easy way to get these onto GitHub. Okay. So I need an easy way to get these onto GitHub. Google Gemini built basically the script, and that's how I get the files from point A to point B. They're all single HTML files. No images are really used except for the meeting simulator. I had to do some like fake. You can pretend to be in a Zoom meeting, so people don't bother you. It works. Even like this fake chat that goes by is kind of fun. If there's an issue that I run into, or a problem that I might be trying to solve, instead of falling into the old pattern of like, oh, I got to find an app, I can make it potentially, or I can search for it, or I could know exactly what I want. For that example of my daughter, she had some challenges with math, and I got the report card, or whatever they call them these days back, the iReady assessment, and she's deficient in these areas. I'm like, oh, okay, well, either I can go look for education tools, or I can try to take that knowledge and bake it into something where I can get the data back. And so if she takes the quiz, I get data. She's better at this than she was this over this month time. So I'm able to do all that within HTML, just a single HTML file, an app, and local storage. I don't need to worry about user management and databases and all that stuff for that kind of thing.
Tell me about Pirillo 95.
Oh yeah, that was fun. It's like 100 different apps on a virtual Windows 95 desktop, built from scratch. Again, vibe coded from scratch. I said, here's what I want. And it did it. And I'm like, that's not exactly what I want. And then you just kind of iterate until you get what you want. That was one of the first ones I did. I bit off a lot. But yeah, you can play little silly little desktop apps, which makes no sense to anybody who wasn't alive, when the first iPhone shipped. But, for, those of us, who've been around for a while, we remember the days of that desktop.
Give the address again.
Yeah, arcade.pirillo.com. And I've got like 4 different apps on my desktop. I've yet to upload some games and that other again, more productive spinning wheel thing. You're not limited by technology. You're limited by your imagination or interest, right? Or your will. Like if you want to do something, there's no sense in waiting for it to happen. No one's going to do it for you necessarily. You got to do it. You can do it yourself.
It's funny because the other thing you're limited by is time. And actually I want to talk about that because that's an interesting topic. Let's get into that when we come back. You're listening to GeekWire. We'll be right back with Chris Pirillo. Welcome back. It's Todd Bishop talking with Chris Pirillo. You can check out his event coming up Thursday, October 16th. It's called Control Alt Create Live. It's all about vibe coding. And Chris, I alluded to this right before the break. I had a conversation with Aaron Levy of Box on the podcast, about 6 months ago. And it was when I was still, getting up to speed on various things. They're into agents. He's really into agents. And my comment to him was, hey, so obviously you're just having all the bots do the work for you. And he kind of opened my eyes in a way that really has changed my perspective. He said, no, if anything, there's so much more that I can do that if I'm spending that much more time doing things, and I actually have less time just to be idle or, ski or, whatever you might do. How are you managing setting your priorities? How are you choosing what to do? I mean, to some extent you can just follow your interest here, but I'm curious, that personal productivity nature of all this when you talk about AI, where are you on all that?
So, we only have so much time in the day. Yeah. I didn't know what it would build to in starting this. I'm like, I just want to do it. I want to see what happens. And because, I want to do this. I couldn't do it for years. I've been alive for 52 years. And granted, we didn't have the internet when I was an infant, but like I've been, I've featured software. I talk about software. I've reviewed software, and suddenly I can do it. And like without, just without knowing everything, I know enough. I'm that customer, that target customer, that user for a product that I couldn't do on my own otherwise. So I didn't know where this was going to go. So I use that time investment more as like a skill building, right? So I'm learning something, I'm trying something, because I don't just want to sit there and say, oh, vibe coding is this and AI is that, without saying, here's what I've done. But what that's led to is, I believe, an opportunity which crosses over with my other, background, event production, right? So I thought, this might be an interesting event because I'm doing this live stream where I'm coding and people are doing their thing. And I thought this would be interesting to get everybody in the same room, have a very creative, time and go for it. I reached out to someone that I knew at Amazon, got connected to the AWS Skills Center, had a meeting. They're like, oh my God, yeah. So that's how we landed that. I started lining up sponsors without, I wouldn't say too much effort, but it was just a coalescing of all of these things, right? Without the experience, without that knowledge, without all those things combined, I wouldn't have the opportunity now to produce something that will inspire others continuously.
How are you using AI in like just the organization of the event? Like, what are you doing on that front?
Yeah, not much. Because quite honestly, having produced events for as long as I have, I'm like, okay, what can I do to mitigate risk? I mean, I can go to AI and say, what can I do to mitigate risk? But I already know what it's going to say because I've had the experience. And certainly finding, partners and sponsors has been a massive help, as well as kind of having an idea of trajectory of where could this thing go. What AI cannot help me with right now is something that is a little more challenging for me, and that's the operational side. So I'm an individual. I'm more of an advocate than an operator. I've learned that about myself. Could AI become that operating tool? Possibly, but I'd rather work with another human being, to be honest, because they've got the experience to know how this thing can go from point A to point B, as opposed to it being completely on my shoulders, the operational aspect of things. So I can say that I vibe coded the website, fleshed out descriptions in a better way. But if I did anything, I would build, and this is probably the next step for it. We are going to be producing events. I'm hoping on a regular cadence. Maybe we take it on the road, with the right sponsor. Maybe we do pop-ups at other events embedded, so we get hired out for that. But part of that experience is going to be like, well, who was there? Who did what? Where can I find more information? When's the next event coming up? So basically looking into vibe coding, at least a prototype. Can't promise it'd be fully functional on a service that might be better suited for my particular skill set, including maybe even using one of the sponsors' platforms. Vibe coding a website that does that allows people to register, upload, if they're doing simple stuff, upload into a portfolio, or at least link off to what they made, who was there, who made what on any given day. I mean, that's where I would lean into AI, using it as a tool to better create an interesting experience for the community. But I haven't gone that far, because I'm like, well, let's get through the first one to talk about the second one, and so on and so forth.
How about just in your day-to-day creative process? How are you using, even apart from vibe coding, like how are you using AI just day to day for yourself?
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, I've got all the apps. In fact, did you know, if you're a Samsung user, I don't know if this is still the same way, but like, you have a Samsung account, you can get Perplexity Pro for a year by downloading it through the Samsung App Store. Yeah.
I am, and I'm sitting here with my Galaxy S25 or whatever. I've lost track.
Yeah, so I don't know if that deal's still there, but you can get a free, upgrade. That's a $200 subscription or whatever. In fact, I had the Google Pixel 10, and after the exchange and the store credit and another bonus, they ended up prorating a refund of my Google Pro account. So I ended up basically getting paid to upgrade to the Pixel 10 as well. So I'm always looking for those kind of deals. But
you're using on Perplexity, it sounds like.
I use Perplexity for some things, like for deeper research. The ChatGPT I've used maybe not as much as I did in the beginning. I'm not a heavy iPhone user, so I haven't had a chance to try Sora, but I'm excited about that because I don't mind, when they're well done. I'm like, I don't care if they call it slop. I mean, it's a well done video. The tool I probably use most is Gemini, and this is how I started to use it, and this really struck me. I just bought a new monitor and was having an issue with, trying to get the refresh rate to where I needed it to be, because natively on Mac OS, it was nerfing it. It seemed like a software issue, not a hardware issue. And I was iterating it. I was searching the web, going to Reddit, going to this forum, other people running into the same problems, getting descriptions back. I'm like, how can I fix this? And so I used Gemini Live and was just having a conversation about all the problems. I'm like, I couldn't do that in a forum. I couldn't do that with quote unquote
Right.
a live tech support person, because it's just the details. But it ended up spitting. Isn't that funny how he, anthropomorphized these tools, right? Gave me information that, well, maybe try this. And I'm like, oh yeah, I did try that tool, but I didn't realize it had that feature. So I downloaded the tool, better display. It's open source. And then went through it, and I was like, well, what does this mean? And so I'm asking the tool as I'm going through this thread, asking Gemini, I'm like, well, how does this work? How does this do this? And it's explaining it. And it's like, okay, so let me try that. Suddenly, I had a solution to two of the problems I was having. One, I was able to unlock a higher refresh rate at a different resolution. So it solved that problem in software. And then it solved the problem of me being able to control brightness using the keyboard. So interacting with AI, I mean, Google's definitely, I know it's going to upset a lot of publishers. I was a publisher too, but like that was a different experience than I ever had. And it struck me.
Yeah.
This just happened, but contemporaneously. So I use AI not because it's AI. I use it to solve problems. What problem do I have? Okay, can it be solved? How can I solve that problem? And I think that's where AI becomes this great mechanism for entrepreneurs, would-be entrepreneurs, creatives, on down the line. And, I've started to say, the AI train is going. You're either in front of it, you're behind it, you're under it, or you're on it. And so I choose to be on it. That's my choice, because I don't want that choice to be made for me. So yeah, I use it, but not necessarily, prolifically. I don't live my life, eat, sleep, and breathe AI in that capacity, but it's exciting. I look for inspiration all the time. I love to see what people are creating and the power that they're unlocking, because as an entrepreneur, when you see someone just that energy, like I did this, that creative spark that they got, and it was in their power to do, that's where, vibe coding, I feel, even if people dismiss it, I don't think they understand it, or I don't think they're the target customer.
It's interesting what you say about Gemini. I found that if you use ChatGPT or Claude, like just recently, I was trying to set up a payment system inside the Ghost CMS through Stripe, and like just basic stuff like where's the gear icon for the settings in Stripe. ChatGPT and Claude, you can tell they were trained on a past version of these websites. And so they'll tell you that the settings icon is in the lower left when it's actually in the upper right. And that's a simple example. Obviously, you can find the dang gear, but if we multiply that over several UI differences, and Gemini gets closer. The thing that I've found though, and to your point, much to the detriment of the web publishers who are feeding this information to Google, AI mode in Google search is actually far closer to something that is, it's just dead on. It's just dead on. And Google has this advantage in that way.
And they're playing it very, very well. And I've used Gemini, the gemini.google.com, but the AI search is what the AI mode in search is what I tripped. I was just searching for things. And then I was just conversationally like, hey, this, hey, that. But the web of yesteryear was fine, and I'm still connecting with community. In fact, I had one of the top rated posts in the Mac OS subreddit yesterday talking about, Apple and Mac. Don't get me started. I promise.
Okay. Actually, in the limited time we have left, I do have to ask you, what's your problem with Apple, Chris?
They're $1 trillion company, and this is what they do? Like, I'm sorry.
But be specific. I have not used an Apple product in 5 years, to be honest with you, except for my iPad mini. Go ahead.
I'm not going to debate their hardware. I will not, because I think it's fine hardware. But what they've unleashed, they just throw out bugs, just throw it out there. and visual inconsistencies, and people keep buying the product. So there's no reason for them to stop doing what they're doing. And it's not a matter of time or resources, because they have both. And they, since iOS 7, and I worried about that. When they released it, I'm like, this is a canary in the coal mine. Like, they thought this was a shippable product. And some people like took it and it's great. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it looks better, but it doesn't run very well. And when you don't realize just how bad it is until you use something that's actually good. So you don't realize just how unintuitive iOS is until you pick up, let's say, your device, my device, or an Android, right? I've got a Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra and everything, and try to back gesture, try to swipe backwards, use it from the right side of the screen. You can't do it in iOS. It's just like, okay, that's fine. That's your decision. That's UX. But it's what they did with Tahoe is they took all the worst things that they had in iOS and brought it to the desktop. And I'm not the only one complaining about it. Like, you just look, and I know there's some people that complain about everything. Anytime, who moved my cheese? This isn't that. It's just so Apple software quality control. It's been so sloppy. Mac OS looks and feels like a knockoff Mac OS. And with the design language, the liquid glass. I mean, just like, I understand how this might work in another, situation, but why? Like
a caricature of itself almost?
Yeah, it's almost a pastiche. Yeah, of like, it's someone else's idea of what Mac OS is. And I'm like, this is not, and I'm not the only one. I'm definitely not the only one. Not to say that everybody out there hates it, not to say that everybody's going to jump ship, but I think best in class mobile software is, whether it's Samsung, and you don't have to use all the, apps that Samsung gives you. You don't use every app that comes baked into any operating system, or what Google's doing with the Pixel. I think those are better mobile experiences than the iPhone. And it has no, I don't care how many years sold. I don't care. I'm using the device that's in my hand. That's the thing I care about most. I don't care how many people buy it. Just because people have, just because this flavor ice cream is more popular doesn't mean it's better. It just means it's more popular.
So are you on Windows 11?
Yeah, I use Windows 11. I don't know if Windows is necessarily, I'm excited with what Microsoft is doing. I'm more excited, I will say, with what Google had basically tilted into, basically using Android on the desktop. They're at the Qualcomm Summit.
Yeah.
They basically are going to be rolling it out. I'm like, great. So then we have a viable contender, Linux on the desktop, finally, and it's been there, but I mean, in a mass market kind of way. I'm interested in that, if only because I carry an Android device and have for quite some time.
Yeah.
But I also believe, sorry, Todd, to dovetail into vibe coding, I believe Google needs to be paying attention. Apple, I know, is paying attention. They have no choice. But like, look at what Nothing is doing with these widgets. I don't have a Nothing phone. I have no interest in them. But what that is, I'm like, oh my God. Like, you don't need to download an app you can just ask it. This is the thing I need to have happen. And then how it's done is relying upon the guardrails, right? Or the strength of that LLM, or whatever, whatever you're trying to do, and the limitations of what you're trying to do on the device that you're trying to do it. But I think this is the way it's going. I really believe it's the way it's going. And the more experience you get with vibe coding, say in any one of these tools, the more you're going to see it, the faster it's going to click.
So you're saying that just as websites today, as a standard feature almost, have a chatbot, customer service agent, apps and sites in the future will have some kind of interface that will allow customers to extend the functionality of the service that company is providing in some way?
No. I think they'll have their phone. They'll have their iPhone, their Android, or whatever, and they'll say, hey, make an app that does this. Make it tic-tac-toe game.
Got it.
Boom. There you go. You didn't need to download it. Hey, can you do a crossword puzzle based on today's headlines? Hey, could you do this? And a year ago, if I said it's, you think I'd be saying this? Like, because I wouldn't. No, there's no way.
It's like Harry Potter.
It's incredible. But that is, and I'm not trying to oversell it. But I think what I am trying to get across is this is not just for developers. This is for everybody. This is, if you have an internet connection, if you have a smartphone, anything, the idea that you can create, and hence that's one of the part of the title of, Control Alt Create, very much Control Alt Delete, the geeky reference. You can do this. It's more important for you to know what it is that you want again, in the realm of product management or the customer or the user than it is to know how to do it. And I think that there's a critical need, again, for both sides. I'm not saying this is going to replace engineers. I'm not crazy. Like it's going to make their lives a lot easier, nor do I think it's going to replace people outright. I will say that you need to upskill, and getting a hold of what AI can do for you is important, whether you're in the job market, you're out of the job market, you're young, you're old, it doesn't matter. People have become scared. We're trained to be scared of technology because it can do these horrible things. It's true, but it can do these amazing things as well. And sometimes seeing that barrier to entry is not as high as you thought it was. And when you do it for the first time, you're like, oh, that was pretty simple. Wow, that was kind of fun. And then it's the next one, and this is the next one, and this is the next one. So yeah, I think this is going to create a new wave of entrepreneurs, businesses, experiences. I don't want to view it through the lens of, if you go to as you kind of framed it, go to a website or an app, because we don't know what the paradigm is. I think it's going to be more, and this is where I think Microsoft's got its eye on the ball, making it more agentic, conversational. The thing I have an issue with Windows right now is the user interface is not as cohesive as I'd like it to be. But now Apple's kind of doing the same thing. So I'm like that Jim Carrey in Ace for a Pet Detective 2. Like he's got the spear in one leg, and the spear in the other leg, and that's how I feel, and I'm tired of it. So yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to be vibe coding our own operating systems anytime soon. But I think the where we see these things today is going to continue to evolve, and putting that power in the hands of the user. It's like I fight for the user. It's Tron. And that to me is the power that you've got. And I'm telling you that as a non-technical person. I'm not a developer, but I'm developing software. So does that make me a software developer? I don't know. What does that mean? I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and debate, whether or not, I'm this person. I'm Chris Pirillo, and I'm finding that these tools do what I need them to do, and I'm able to make them do the things that I want them to do. And those you're going to get more powerful and easier and more accessible. So yeah, anyway, I could go on for hours, and I do.
That is Chris Pirillo. He's got an event coming up called Control Alt Create Live. You can find Chris. Where's the best place to find? Well, you've got a teaser on the website. Give the website again.
arcade.pirillo.com. You can just Google me. I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free to outreach. That's kind of how the sponsorships came together for the first event. My hope is to do a series here in Seattle, but who knows where it's going to go. We've got. Can I mention the sponsors? The people like
go for it.
Okay, didn't want to step on any toes, but Every.io is our presenting sponsor, and I'm very grateful for that. They're basically. And the reason why is because you can come up with an idea, but then you got to create a business. How are you going to create a business? Well, Every.io will actually incorporate your C Corp for free. So like you create the idea, then where do you go next? It made an amazing partner. And then Google Jules is also a sponsor, and they're a tool that you could use. They just launched a command line interface, but you integrate it like with GitHub, and it becomes an agent where you fix bugs, add features, etc. It makes it very, very simple. We've got Rocket.new, which is another vibe coding platform, full featured, that you can go to rocket.new on the website. They're a sponsor. And then Stately.cloud is going to be bringing in pizzas. There was also an anonymous sponsor that was more of a colleague that came in to support the idea. But this is where I'm saying I think it has legs. The event, the community, the inspiration, the education, the networking, the connection, and it's all within our own hands. I'm not, teaching necessarily so much as I am showing you how to do that for yourself.
You might say that you found Pirillo market fit.
You know what? In many ways, I've been, I'd rather try something and fail. And this is the same thing with vibe coding. I'd rather try something and it not work than guess and sit there. And I've too many people are sitting on the sidelines waiting to be, not rescued is probably the wrong word, but like someone else to take care of the problem. Yeah. And part of entrepreneurship is figuring out how to do it. Vibe coding at least gives you the ability to understand, oh, that's how you do this. Oh, I didn't know it was this way. But and again, the event construct, we're all here remotely in front of our computers, but when we see other people doing it and we're mixing and mingling with other people, suddenly that inspiration just goes through the roof and the energy goes through the roof. And then what's produced after that just inspires the next one and the next one and the next one. So yeah, I'm this is probably, I wouldn't even say a passion project. This just seems like, as you said in the beginning, like everything is kind of led up to this. It feels that way because it checks a lot of boxes.
Chris, I always love. Sorry, go ahead. What were you saying?
No, I'm sorry, Todd. I told you, we're going to hang up from this thing, and I'm still going to be talking to the camera, and no one's going to be listening.
Chris Pirillo, I always love talking to you. I leave our conversations energized, and I'd say this is even more so just because the possibilities are so much bigger. So thank you very much for talking with me, and good luck with the event.
Thank you. Hope to do more.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'm GeekWire co-founder Todd Bishop. We'll be back next week with a new episode of the GeekWire podcast. Hey, that was fun. I love it.
I had to give Apple their lumps, man. Oh, God. Oh, God. But it is interesting. Here, like I said, look at nothing. Look at Rourke. Look at, where is it? Bitrig. That was, I should have called it. So Bitrig learned to vibe code Swift apps on your iPhone, turn ideas into apps in seconds. If they're not acquired or Apple doesn't bake this into the next iOS, Apple is nuts because like this is transformative. It's so transformative. Taking that power instead of just downloading it and just making your own.
I'm going to use this as an addendum, okay?